If you take just the first commandment, which says, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods beside me. Well, there were countries that honored that, or whatever. If you're going to have a universal, free-for-all, with everybody accepted, that would have to go. In fact, it would have to then say, you will have all other gods besides me, right or wrong. You will have to tolerate idolatry, or else you're in trouble.
Hey YouTube, my name's Matthew Korpman, and this is Bible Scholar Reacts, a series of videos in which I, a biblical scholar, react to some of the craziest stuff you can find on the internet. Today, we're going to be looking at a recent video that Walter Veith went ahead and put out about human rights. And again, another shout out to Adventist Today for all that they have done in terms of helping to sponsor this video, and please go check out the work that they are doing over there.
So if the first commandment says, you shall have no other gods beside me, human rights says you have no right to interfere in any man's religion or run down or counter any other religion or their deity.
What must children be taught in our school systems? There is no longer such a thing as religious instruction as it was in the old days. Today, you have comparative religion as a study, and each child has to be exposed to all the religions, and it is wrong to say that one religion is superior to another. So by international legislation, United States human rights legislation, the law now reads, you shall regard all other gods as equal to me. Isn't that what the law says these days? By law? Isn't that how our children are trained? What has happened in our schooling systems? The one God that is referred to in the Bible, is he exclusively worshipped, or does the school system of the world now embrace all religions? What has happened? It has embraced all religions. And to say that one religion is superior to another, or one deity is superior to another, is regarded as hate speech. That's a negation of the first commandment, which says, you shall have no other gods before me. So there's a new commandment, which totally contradicts God's commandment. And prayer in the public schools became a great issue, and it was in 1962 that the first ban came into effect. So your human right not to be confronted with another religion in this fashion has negated the law of God.
Back in history, all universities were started basically as church schools.
Yes.
And what are they today? The exact opposite. Everything that is biblical has been removed from the curriculum. Where does that come from? The Jesuits. And I know it sounds like a broken record when we say that.
Would you want to go to a university that was promoting the Quran or any other religious text? I mean, no, you'd want to be able to study it and be able to objectively analyze it, because they're not intended to convert you. Just like you don't want to be converted in a classroom for Islam if you're Christian. In the same way, someone who's Muslim isn't going to want to try to be converted to Christianity with the Bible. So, I don't get it, Veith. Like, Adventists are in support of religious liberty. So I don't understand the whole point here of why this is such a negative in your mind. It just seems like it's a dog whistle, and you're just trying to kind of fire up your conservative base who isn't really thinking that deeply about this. So far, this is a pretty fundamentally anti-Adventist way of talking about education.
To the modern laws of hate speech, where you are not allowed to criticize what others do. If you say that idolatry is something that is evil, then you are contradicting the human rights of that individual, and therefore the second commandment has not only been removed by Rome, it has been totally obliterated by human rights. And in fact, it can be considered offensive or hate speech to say anything against any other religion. Hate speech causes conflict. Now, what can be considered hate speech? Of course, to tell somebody that you belong to the wrong religion, or your religion is false. That is attacking your human right to be totally happy in your little world that you are living in, which includes your religion. Peace, peace. We will live side by side. We will not attack each other anymore. You can believe what you believe, as long as your belief does not interfere with this common good of fraternity. And there goes the Gospel Commission.
Yeah.
And if you dare to continue with your Gospel Commission, eventually you will become the enemy. What if the Christian group then eventually says, this is what you have to believe? There is no other way to be saved than this one particular way. Now that could be considered an affront to any of the other religions, yes, or will be considered an affront. Absolutely. So religious freedom, in the sense of living side by side in a conflict-free environment, must necessarily also then curtail your freedom of speech in terms of what you believe.
Yes.
Proselytizing, you're not allowed to tell others as to what you can do. So there are certain...
Yeah, and FYI, that's the Adventist position. That's been the Adventist position, you know? I mean, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. He happens to call himself a Seventh-day Adventist. So in terms of Adventism's history, we've always been supporters in our denomination of religious freedom. This is just anti-Adventist if he has a problem with that. He's putting himself on the opposite end of what Adventism actually believes about religious freedom.
As Seventh-day Adventists, we've always embraced religious liberty as an important part of our beliefs, history, and mission. In fact, religious liberty is in the very DNA of our church. You see, religious freedom is a fundamental freedom, a basic human right. A basic human right. It is also good for the well-being of societies and countries.
So in other words, the commandment of human rights says you will consider all gods as equal.
Yeah.
Huh? I mean, equal under the law? Yeah. Equal in each person's own personal beliefs? No. That wouldn't be anyone's consideration of a human right. Because that would be the opposite. You would be totalitarian in your religious view.
So if you go through human rights, the idea of you shall have no other gods but the one who brought the Israelites out of Egypt, that's highly problematic. Yeah. You're not allowed to have idolatry. It is your human right to worship in the form that you want to. Therefore, idolatry must be acceptable.
And the Adventist Church would agree that idolatry is acceptable in a country that is priding itself on keeping religion and church separated. That is the Adventist stance. Yes, indeed, have your idolatry, have your other gods. By all means, freedom of religious expression. It's the same reason why when same-sex marriage was being debated, the Adventist Church said, look, it's a constitutional issue. The justices need to make their decision based on the Constitution, not religion. Right? That is the Adventist stance. Okay, the law, the government, that's their own thing. They have to protect the common good. The fact that you seem to not agree with that simply illustrates how far off from Adventism your own teaching has extended itself.
Only one God is blasphemed, none of the others. This I always find very fascinating. I want to write to the Human Rights Commission and say, you know, in the interest of fairness and equality, should not all gods be equally blasphemed? Couldn't you spread it around a little bit in the interest of fairness? I wonder how they would react. I wonder how the Muslim world would react.
I can't keep going with this. What we can conclude is Veith is for enforcing religious standard. He wants a fundamentalist apparent theocracy where he would like the government to impose biblical mandates on people. He has a fundamentally un-Adventist view.
For Satan loves extreme. For Satan loves extreme.
Please hit that subscribe button, click that like button.
Poor old Eutychus couldn't stand his droning and droning and droning, fell asleep. And I gather some people here also fall asleep from my droning.